So,
Okay.
but we've been working very well together, and I think we would just continue to work through those issues as well. I don't know if, anyway, that's not what this exact.
But however, if there are questions that people want to ask that can be asked now, that will help me prepare the necessary materials for the public hearing to make sure those questions are ready to be answered, I'm happy to entertain them.
I think the least effective date, to Mr. Kelly's point, is just the date that we sign it. So that would not be until after the public hearing was held.
So are you saying that the lease could be approved, but not signed?
It's effective once we voted. So the
Okay.
public hearing has to be held before we can take a vote.
Thank you.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's intended, there's a blank, and it is intended for both parties to sign, and it immediately becomes effective. And that is then defined as the commencement date. And then that's when the 90 days runs. And incidentally, the current lease could be terminated by either party in 3 months. So it's the same as the current lease as far as the period to get the financing. And I'm assuming, because I've heard tonight that they've had discussions, good ones, and they know that they have financing, I wouldn't think that would be an issue. But I think once the blank is filled in after their board votes and you all vote and the last person signs, the intent is that's the effective date that triggers the commencement date, that triggers the 90 days. As far as, I'm sorry.
No, that was my understanding.
And as far as any demolition costs, my understanding was once this piece was carved out on Colonial Avenue on that plat, that there is an existing building, and my understanding was that it would have to be removed in some fashion. So the language in the draft is that demolition, among other costs, would be borne by the rescue squad.
That's what I thought, but I didn't know where in the lease it was.
It's in D, in section, the same section 2D, as in dog.
But I also didn't want to put Diane on the spot with like whether that building, no, you don't want it? No, you haven't talked
No,
about
don't
it.
put me on the spot.
Don't put you on the spot. And that, I was trying to deflect for you a little bit.
There's a lot to consider there. With the
There
building.
is, yes. Okay, any other questions?
She has a plan for making a parking lot now.
Sure.
I think Tom's putting you on the spot now, right after I said that. I should have said anything. Any other questions? No, okay, all right.
Can I just say 2 more things? I do want to thank Attorney Kyle, do I have that correct? Okay, for her work on the lease while she was working for the town, and she worked very well with Michael Mayo, who was our attorney through the process. As you know, he and Valerie Mayo are retiring, and so now we've secured Jack Billingsley, who's in King George's legal counsel. And I do also want to thank Mr. Moncure for his plug at the beginning of the meeting for people to consider charitable donations to the squad. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, all right. Do we have a motion to set the public hearing at the next council meeting?
So
For a second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I was trying to get out of here by 8, guys. Okay, ordinance 736. Amends the town of Colonial Beach zoning ordinance, Article 7, 8, and 9. This is a public hearing. We're not voting on these changes right now, just holding the public hearing. Is that correct? Did I skip forward in time?
she got up early.
I'm early.
Okay, you're ready to go. Oh, she's like,
Well, you said you wanted to be done by 8, so.
Okay. You were taking it for work. Is there anyone signed up for the public hearing?
We have Eric Nelson who's present and then 2 by email.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna officially open the public hearing because this has to be on record at 7:49 PM. I'll call up Mr. Nelson first then.
Thank you, Eric Nelson, 1321 Lossing Avenue, and I've spoken on this subject a few times, and I just want to reiterate my support for the idea of a mobile vending court, especially in the resort commercial district, which happens to coincide, I think, exactly with the DORA zone, the designated outdoor refreshment area. So I think the two activities could tie together really, really nicely as we implement this sip and stroll. So I just want to reiterate my support. Thank you.
And is there anybody else in the audience? If not, we'll read the email ones. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and read.
All right, first I have one for Mr. Kelly. He says, I'm pleased to see the proposed change in zoning to permit food trucks in the commercial district. It's a good move forward for the economic development of the downtown area. The requirement for a conditional use permit should be eliminated. The cost of obtaining a conditional use permit is more than $800 and takes 2 to 4 months to obtain. This is a big deterrent to attracting quality vendors. This provision will stop businesses from coming to our town because it presents a barrier to entry and says, we really don't want you here. We have enough regulations in place already and competent enforcement staff to ensure that all businesses are run properly. Please remove the conditional use permit requirement. I'm available at any time to discuss these issues further. The next one is from Miss Yvonne Najat. She basically just wrote, Dear Darla, it was a pleasure to meet you last evening at the planning commission meeting regarding amending the planning commission zoning ordinance at Article 7, 8, and 9 to afford mobile vending courtyards on public property in RC, C1, and CR zoning districts. I am unfortunately not able to attend the town council meeting tonight due to a prior commitment. However, I am hopeful that the members of the town council will agree with the decision of the planning commission, and this new and exciting opportunity for Colonial Beach can be underway. I also wanted to compliment you on your professionalism and assistance to the town of Colonial Beach as the zoning administrator. It is evident to me you are an asset to the citizens of and the town of Colonial Beach.
All right, seeing no further public comment, I'm gonna close the public hearing at 7:52 p.m. And that's it. Council action will be next meeting. Is there any further discussion that needs to happen on that topic? Mr. Williams?
Can I get a definition of a mobile food cart or food court? What was, I heard last night it was defined as one or more food trucks.
One or more mobile vending, not just food, mobile vending. Whatever.
Is that,
Okay,
vehicle.
sorry.
is that the official definition?
I
Yeah.
don't have the official definition. For that.
Okay.
I'm relying on Mr. Allison or Darla. Darla, you're online with us.
Madam Mayor, members of council, the definition was in the amendments to Article 20, and it defines the mobile vending courtyard as a parcel where one or more mobile vending vehicles is located for the purpose of retail sales, not for vehicle storage. It specifically says for the retail sales.
Okay. I think that answers the question. Yeah.
Does that eliminate parking lots?
If a person wanted to own the parking lot and wanted to get the conditional use for the courtyard in that parking lot, that would be a consideration with their application. But it does not affect the town's program that the town has for town-owned properties. This is a privately owned parcel of land.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No? Darla, is there anything else you'd like to add?
The only thing I would say is that the amendments also include not only adding the mobile vending courtyard by conditional use in the resort commercial, general commercial, and commercial residential districts, but there also are some cleanup amendments. And just to point that out, so as you're looking at, this for your consideration, those are there. They're really just for the ease of use of the ordinance to clean up their cleanups throughout those 3 sections as well.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Ray.
Yeah, I did want to clarify, can anybody confirm, is it about $800 to get a conditional use permit?
I believe it is $800. I was waiting to see if she was gonna respond. Ms. Orr, do you know if it's $800?
I don't have the fee sheet in front of me, but I believe that is correct.
I think the advertising alone is like is the cost. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
I
Okay,
would like to make a clarification, just to Mr. Williams' point, you know, the landowner would be purchased or redoing the conditional use permit. At which time, if they had one or more up to 5 food vending operations there, they could recoup the cost of the cup by having to rent for that, you know what I'm saying? So if you have 5 vehicles that are gonna be parked on your parking lot and you charge each of them $200, then that would suffice for the cost of the cup. So the landowner, although $800, could get those fees back from the individual vendors that they have on their properties.
Well, I think like in any business venture, if you go in to start a business, that's one of your considerations and whether or not you could make it work, right? Are there examples of other places that require conditional use permits? I have no idea what this looks like anywhere else. It's the first time we've considered it. Are there places where you can by right have a mobile food court on private property? You've done more research on this than anybody.
Well, you're putting me on the spot. I'm trying to give you an answer quickly. I'm not sure the actual food court option as far as a cup. I do know that other jurisdictions within Virginia do require some form of a permit in order to put a courtyard in a parking lot or even in commercial areas. So I don't know the cup is thing, but there are stipulations within which we use for the cup reason. They just may call it something different.
okay. Yes, Ms. Ryan.
Sorry, his comment reminded me of something. Does a cup expire?
That can be a condition of a cup.
But it could potentially just stay it forever, like somebody gets a cup on building to have residential.
Correct, and
commercial.
they're transferable with land sale.
Okay.
Probably not still up there, but that's been my experience. You can make conditions like that.
Which was the reason I wanted to go with cup.
Right.
Planning commission decided to use the cup option. Sorry, I didn't have my mic on. That's the reason why the planning commission had the cup option, so they can set regulations.
She's muted, but yeah, I think she's.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
They looked at those options, and to be able to look at them on a case-by-case basis, at least as these courtyards are being introduced into the town. And that way, you know, we can look at the impacts on a case-by-case basis, and there can be conditions recommended for those uses. One of those conditions can be, or doesn't have to be, that there's a time limit on that. And
Yeah. I think I'll invite you to come on up to the podium. Yeah.
I can speak to one of the questions that was asked because I did do a lot of the research. Vivian C. Now I dropped Giles, but anyway, finally, with respect to the research on, sorry, just so you know, if I introduce myself here, with respect to the mobile vending trucks, I did look at other jurisdictions when we were looking at this, and the ones where it wasn't a conditional use, they were relegated to the situations like, and we've all seen them, where there are maybe construction sites. They weren't in your like downtown area. They were out somewhere, and the purpose was something different. The purpose was more to serve maybe construction sites or that sort of, and they were food trucks or that sort of thing. So this is a little bit different context, so I think the thinking was that to maintain some control or to give the potential for some conditions because it was an entirely different context. So the only ones that I saw where there weren't conditions or it wasn't set up that way, it was a totally different environment.
Mr. Williams.
Remind me of something. So say we approve a food truck court or a vendor court, and we set conditions in the CUP, it gets all approved. And then we like think, oh, wait a minute, we horribly screwed up on this one. We didn't say they needed to do this on the road facing, or we didn't say we couldn't put storage stuff, or some crazy stuff happens. I know we can resolve that with the next CUP, but can we go back to a CUP that's already been approved and say, hey, we want these conditions, or decided these conditions were needed, or are we stuck with what we approved?
That would be a question for your legal counsel, and I don't want to get in front ahead of him on the answer to that question.
I mean, I feel like you'd be stuck because I think that's the whole point. So,
Unless you granted, and this is something that I have done in other jurisdictions, not for food or vending, mobile vending, but we have granted permits for a limited period of time to be revisited so that you can see how it's going, if you will. So you might give a 1 or 2 year conditional use permit and then make it eligible for renewal, but then you would know.
that would be the super conditional use permit.
Would they have to spend the $800 in 2 years if we just did it for 2 years?
It's not a new application for them to come and renew.
It was just a renewal, so it would be a lesser fee.
I would think so.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay, all right, so we have the public hearing today. This will be on next meeting to move forward on, and Kelly, you're up.
Good evening. I wanted to address the strategic goals and plans for the town of Colonial Beach. We have been working on this for quite some time. There was a lot of citizen and stakeholder input that went into this. There were several meetings that were held and we had great turnout and support and information shared. We brought in a moderator from Weldon Cooper at UVA, who is very skilled and a former town manager, and he led the discussion. So I feel like we have a great deal of input from our citizens going into this. I don't look at this as a controversial strategic plan. I've done these before where there have been very many controversies and a lot of discussion. This is pretty straightforward and really reflective of what your town citizens have asked for. So I will go over this. It's there for your review and we'll address it again on the 21st. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me this evening, or if you're reviewing this over the next few weeks and have additional questions, I'm happy to answer them. So our first goal that we're looking at, next slide, thank you, is pursuing the Main Street designation in collaboration with downtown Colonial Beach. And we've talked about this before. They have just submitted the application for emerging Main Street. Main Street has done a reorganization of levels, and we are very well situated for that application. We anticipate approval. Every indication from our contacts in Richmond told us that we were one of the best localities applying for that particular level. Main Street, I was asked today during a discussion with a citizen, what's the benefit of Main Street? Main Street has huge benefits. Main Street is a national organization and a state organization, but a lot of people, tourists even, look at Main Streets as places to visit, and business operators that are looking to expand and grow businesses look for Main Street designation because it means the community is involved and that you really care about the downtown and about your Main Street and bringing smaller businesses back. So it also increases resources from a state level and from a national level, and it also gives opportunity for some funding. So we will continue to pursue that, and I think that that's one of our top objectives, I believe, as a town, and very important and moving forward. Somebody asked me about the timing of this. This is not something that you check some boxes and then all of a sudden you're approved. It is a much more engaged process than that. And you're looking at probably 2+ years moving forward. So, but we're on the right track. So much groundwork is done by Downtown Colonial Beach and other organizations throughout the town to get us to the point where we are now. So we're really in a great position. But we'll continue to attend national and local meetings. I'll continue to, support Downtown Colonial Beach. They've done a great job with that application, and we'll also continue to look at other localities that have main streets and what we can learn from them. I visited 3 of those since April, and it's fascinating. You always learn something new, and they each take things a little differently on how they handle marketing and what they do for the town. So we'll continue to do that. On to the second goal. So we're looking to continue to increase retail presence, so retention and expansion. If you look at other main streets and other towns, they've done a better job. We like, even with the vendor court, that's great. But you also want to be able to extend the season too. And by having destination places such as a vendor court with meat restaurants and other things, you expand that shoulder season. If you look at Cape Charles, they've done a magnificent job of doing that, and I think that we can learn from that. But that's a goal. So I'm talking to businesses that have locations in other localities, maybe even in other places in the Northern Neck, that are possibly looking to expand. But in order to do that, we have to have the localities and the buildings and the sites for that to happen. And as you know, we applied for a community business launch earlier this year, and really the only reason we didn't get it is because our sites and buildings for businesses weren't really ready for occupancy, like other localities that also apply. So there will be some funding and some things like that that may be available through some of the state organizations that may not require a match, and we will be looking into that as well. But that is a focus for us. By growing the retail and restaurants, we're increasing the revenue for the town and making it more of a destination, and hopefully increasing tourism and also increasing that shoulder season too. The third goal is looking at maritime, and I really don't think that we've taken advantage of that asset as much as we possibly can from tourist and from economic development. So we really want to look at that, really have some discussion with additional stakeholders, and also look at the industry when we're looking and partnering with our educational folks as well. We have some of those marina owners and others that are more than willing, but really are looking at workforce issues like many other segments as well. And we want to make sure that we're helping educational wise on that front. And education plays a big part in economic development that a lot of people don't realize, but we saw something today that was released. The state of Virginia is #2 in the nation in higher education. And that's one reason that the state of Virginia has attracted some of the major industry that it has done recently. That's one reason why the second headquarters of Amazon chose Virginia, and why Lego just recently chose Chesterfield, because of some of the educational things. So if we can partner with our educational friends here, county, and regionally, it makes a big difference. So goal number 4, we're looking at healthcare. I think everybody can agree that we'd love to have better services here from a healthcare standpoint, urgent healthcare. We have made inroads with Mary Washington Health and had some discussion with them that was very encouraging, but it's not a quick fix. It's going to be long-term. So we're going to continue those talks and continue to build those relationships, and also work with other institutions such as Virginia Commonwealth and other urgent care facilities as well. We know that's a need, but we also want to support the clinic that we have here as well as much as possible, and continue to grow that area because there is a need, and that's definite. The other is the workforce resilience on goal number 5, and we're looking just to continue to support, this is a national issue with workforce, every industry. When you go to a restaurant, takes a little bit longer now, just about anything you want to do. And so we really want to keep part of the chamber, did a wonderful event with the high school recently, and had many businesses there to talk to students about different careers and opportunities, and we want to continue to support that as well. And also our regional partners, as well as Rappahannock and other places too. Workforce housing, goal number 6. Again, we're not unique in this community, but I think moving forward, what we want to make sure we do is, as we talk to developers and others, we want to make sure that workforce housing is a priority in those areas. It's tough when you can't recruit policemen and teachers because you really don't have any affordable housing. We're not the only town. I think there have been some rejuvenation in the Colonial Beach Housing Authority here, and working with some of the state partners and looking at some other localities, not just in Virginia, but in other places that have had some success. But again, I think if we look at developments and things that are a requirement for workforce housing, be part of all of that. We have guiding principles that we've listed here, and basically economic development, we want to serve as the primary contact whenever the town receives inquiries. If you have somebody or have a friend or know anyone that wants to expand a business, please direct them my way. We want to continue to be a resource for existing businesses and for new businesses as well. We want to make the town of Colonial Beach continue to be a desirable place to work and live. We want to explain economic development, why we do it, helps grow the tax base, helps us have amenities and keep public service and have schools and other things. We also want to have the office streamline our business process. We've been working on that. So when new businesses come into town, the process is very simple. It's easy to understand if they want to do a brick and mortar or they're doing an at-home business or a restaurant. What needs to happen in the time frame that usually happens. People that aren't familiar with government don't understand the processes, and sometimes there are hearings and the length and time that it takes to get that done. A few other things that are mentioned. Moving forward, we'd also want to continue with communications with our partners. Since I've been here in April, I've invited, a lot of people laugh, I've invited just about everybody to come visit. So we've had visitors from Virginia Tourism and from Fredericksburg Regional Alliance and Go Virginia and some of the other localities that are doing economic development as well. And we want to continue to foster those relationships. It's really important. Economic development is not a single person, it's a group, and it takes multiple localities. And some of the things that we apply for, some of the grants and things are required that we work with other localities. So we want to improve those relations where we can with neighboring counties and continue to work with our stakeholders as well. And we want to explore the opportunity to establish an economic development authority. And there are many benefits to doing that. It allows you additional financial resources and avenues to pursue. It establishes some continuity in things as well. And might be a greater voice as well from the citizens because you would have members as well. But we're just in the exploration phase of that at this point. It's just something to look at and to consider long-term when you're building rescue squad buildings and other buildings and things. Sometimes those authorities can hold lands and other things that can be very beneficial when you get ready to do that. Something to consider for the future. Are there any questions?
Mr.
This is one thing I've thought of before. I'm not sure if this is something towns ever do. I think I spoke with, I can't remember if the lady was from Kilmarnock, maybe. They're planning, I don't think it was director, but like the next down position. and she said something about their restaurants. I know one of the things that we struggle with in this town is you can't even go like on Monday and find a place to eat hardly. There's like
Correct.
Lido's and maybe one other place open. Do towns ever partner with like local restaurants to say like have one day a month where this particular one's open and maybe they offer a special and try to bring in people, do they ever do anything like that?
Some do. It varies from location to location. Yeah, that's something I've struggled with because I'm often here on Mondays as
Yeah,
well. And
me
then
too.
the Mexican restaurant, we're lucky we have 3 Mexican restaurants, but
Yeah.
the one on Monroe Bay is open, has
Oh,
been
yeah,
open
true.
7 days a week. So they've probably seen more of me than they want to. But it just depends on locality and you have to, it helps if you have a critical mass. And that's what we hope to get to. It'd be great for people to say, hey, I'm headed to Colonial Beach because they've got that vendor court and they've got like 5 other restaurants. So I don't think people are saying that now. And I don't think we're a destination like that. And I think that we could be. I think we have the potential. I think the vendor court is a great start to that. Definitely. So, but those are things that can all be worked out.
Okay, and then I was also, I noticed the workforce housing in there, and has anybody ever done any study to figure out how many workforce houses we actually need? To me, this is just me looking at the community, there's not a lot of jobs here, Food Line, McDonald's, the town and schools and stuff like that, but does anybody done an assessment to figure out what the actual need is?
I don't know that there has been an actual assessment, but typically when developments are done, there's a percentage of those developments that's dedicated to that area. And while we don't need it to be huge, we do need it. Hotel, restaurant workers, teachers, firemen, policemen, and others have really found it very difficult. Not just here, but everywhere. And as home prices here, if you look at the last few years, have steadily gone up. It's not gotten any easier. And so we're not talking about government funded housing or anything like that. We're really talking about your workforce. And so to have an exact number, I don't know that there's an exact number, but the town manager may have.
I'll jump in. The Commonwealth did a study last year and it's probably 300 or 400 page document, but the short of it is workforce housing, there's shortage across the entire state. I think in conversations with Dr. Mitchell, specifically was talking about recruiting teachers here, there's overall a lack of housing in terms of workforce, same thing with the chief, police, and obviously on general government side as well. But we've also heard that over and over and over again in our economic development meetings with some of our tourism businesses, such as Riverview Inn and our marinas, about not having places where people can find housing for workforce housing for their employees, but also finding permanent housing for their employees long-term. And we have some staff currently who would like to buy homes and own homes in the town. But due to that lack of access, it's not there. So I can speak to it specifically.
Virginia Housing will do a study for us for free. We want to investigate it further.
I think we should at some point. Definitely.
Thank you.
I just have one comment on it. Or do you want to go first, Dr. Karen?
Well, I wanted to know if Kelly, if you would share the PowerPoint with us as well as
Sure.
the written report, because I
Sure.
found that really well formatted.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
And I'd like to share it further, if that's okay, if it's public now.
Sure,
Public document. The other thing that, one of the big issues with our housing is that we have been so successful at attracting tourists that there, a lot of our housing, houses that sold for $125,000 just 3 years ago are now $250,000, $300,000 because they're being bought up by investors who are turning them into Airbnbs. And they're getting $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month during the season for these houses that normally, if a regular investor that was investing in long-term rentals might be getting $1,500 to $2,000 a month for. So it's not just that we don't have the housing, it's like a lot of the housing that we have had is disappearing.
Well, it's being inflated by the economic conditions. But my only comment on it was under the healthcare section. I found it a little bit particularly lacking to address the smaller healthcare partnerships, like specialists or standalone practices. And that is, I think, a bigger need and also an easier bite to chew and get, more achievable than some of the other goal sets of that. And I mean specifically a dentist, optometrist, pediatrician. These are very basic healthcare sectors, and we used to have them. We used to have a dentist, we used to have an optometrist, we used to have a pediatrician, and we have none of those sectors right now. So I
We can
think,
add that.
yeah, I think as far as, engaging Mary Washington Health and Commonwealth, and urgent care facilities, while we have 4 of them in King George, right down the street. I think it's just maybe that sector of specialist care and individual specialties would be more done. Otherwise, I don't have to specific, I'm not asking to amend it or anything, I'm just noting it that under the other healthcare partners,
We'll add that in.
let's try to focus on some of that.
Sounds good.
If there's no other discussion, do you want us to adopt it now, or is it,
I think it goes to the 21st.
okay, approved to be adopted the 21st. All right, any other discussion, this side, left side? No,
Thanks.
all right, next up, audio, visual discussion. Mr. Williams.
Yes, I didn't really prepare anything for this, just, last year when I started on council, prior to that as a resident, I always, one of my pet peeves is going back and watching videos to see what happened in the meeting or watching the meeting live. Half the time I couldn't hear him, I cranked it up as loud as I possibly could, and I still really struggled. And I've noticed, I think even from watching the planning commission last night, there were some audio issues, microphones not working. So, and I know, India, last year when I discussed this with her, talked to Heather, and they tried to work something out, maybe even got a volunteer to help in the community to see if they could help resolve, and I'm not sure what all happened. I know they redid some stuff with the broadband or something to try to resolve. But so anyway, I feel like it's pretty important. A lot of people do watch these meetings online or go back and watch them. And, just people in the audience, I hear over and over again that they struggle to hear, they can't hear half what we say. So I would just like to, the reason why I brought this up is I'd like council to take it a little more seriously and try to get it resolved so that we have a solid, sound system. I don't know that it requires, a whole reworking of the system, but, somebody coming in and at least checking each microphone and seeing how everything works and just shoring up the system a little bit so that it's more reliable.
Ms. Oliver, I defer to you because you're the one that maintains the system.
Great. So I've looked into it and there's a few options. So one option is to get it completely rehauled. The last time the microphones were installed was in 2017, and just for the microphones to be installed was a little over $2,500. That was for the parts and the installation. That's not the wiring that goes behind the walls and up through the ceiling down to the soundboard. That predates 2017. So the rehaul of all of that would be over $40,000. In 2015, when Westmoreland County did their whole entire audio and video, it was almost $42,000 in 2015. So.
What about just fixing some of the mics we have?
To get a new wireless microphone setup that can use the current soundboard and no extra cameras or anything would be about $2,500. And that's for a 24 microphone system. So that would give us extra mics. So in case one did break, we could just swap them out. Because we only need a total of, I had that number, 16, I think, mics. No, 18.
Is this an item you want to consider budgeting for our next budget cycle, or you want us to find more immediate? Be proposing more immediate. expenditure?
When you're talking about next budget cycle, you're talking about like 6 months down the road or?
Well, like, we started in February.
5 of the ports, one of the main problems is that 5 to 6 of the ports don't operate anymore. So somewhere behind the walls or in the ceiling, the wires are faulty. So
I'll go with Dr. Karen first.
So I know we upgraded our internet, and I know that Breeze Line has issues in town with internet coming and going. I have a message from a citizen tonight that it was down for about 15 minutes when we were discussing something. Hopefully that has been recorded so they can go back and watch the discussion they missed. But I mean, I know at my house, when the internet is acting up, I have to get on the phone and stay on the phone and, you know, it's another thing that we talked about from an economic development is, you know, is there anybody get competition in town? But we're stuck right now. Breeze Line is the best that we have. But if there's any way we can be that squeakiest wheel as far as, you know, getting our system up to the best that it can be. It's just ridiculous that the internet goes out as much as it does in some places.
we upgraded our internet to where we're not the very top, we're the next one down. So that's almost $300 a month just for this. Just to have it that fast because it's the uploading.
But it's not the
For
speed, it's not the
streaming.
speed that I'm talking about, it's the interruptions.
Right, and that's Breeze Line, there's nothing we can
Complain.
yeah.
I'm with Karen. I'm happy to write a letter to Breeze Line.
I mean, just keep it.
Cause that's what happened here is I had it hardwired and something happened where the hardwire just dropped out. So I had to disconnect from the hardwire and then reconnect to the Wi-Fi. It was,
So I think Heather for doing that research, but I think based on my experience having put in an AV system in a locality before, you really want to hire a professional to take a look at the total system because we can continue to invest $2,500 here, $2,500 there, and you can end up with the same result, even with the fastest internet speeds, which Heather mentioned we almost have at this point. So really the question for council is, do you want to make a long-term investment into this facility, knowing that it's aging? And then as soon as you start pulling back walls and wires, you may uncover other things, which could increase cost all around. So I would caution us on that as we consider the next budget cycle, but we are happy to take the direction that you all would like to go.
How is it going to, the whole internet going down? We can't solve that problem, right? But how is this audio and stream from tonight? Because I've been noticing that it was getting worse and worse with the mic issues and video issues and stuff like that. But tonight seems to go pretty smoothly. So I didn't know if it was just a maintenance thing, because
the only problem I had on my end was the interruption when the internet dropped out.
the internet dropped out.
I watched the entire planning commission meeting today, I listened to it
Mhm.
on my way to work, and most of the mics were working okay. I think Nate's, I couldn't hear him for some reason. He was very faint, in and out. But I mean, just like mine's working fine right now. Seems like over there, I don't know if you guys give yourself the worst mics over there or what, but no, like Heather and
Yeah, they
the
were.
attorney. Yeah, so I mean, I would be fine with just maybe buying a couple extra microphones if we needed, if the microphones were the issue, or do you think it's the wiring or something?
Well, there's wireless and there's wired. The wireless seems to be okay, but I think those even predate those microphones, which were the 2017 microphones. Nathan's, I found out today that the port that microphone was plugged into went bad. So I plugged in another microphone that we had extra into a port that was good. So now that microphone's working.
Okay,
I'm your AV person.
so I don't know,
No
maybe,
training.
you know,
Come to it.
I get where India's going with, don't want to spend, 40 grand on a system that may or may not stick around, but we don't know. I mean, I guess at some point we'll know if you're moving from here or whatever, but at least invest in a few extra good working microphones and maybe ports of extra, I don't know, is there extra ports or?
No, the port is basically when at your house, you have your phone jack, you have your cable jack. So the wires are going behind the walls and out the house.
Mhm.
These wires are to the port, the jacks there, the microphone jacks there, and the wires are going up and over into the soundboard, and then the soundboard's connecting to the speakers and stuff. So somewhere along the way from the microphone port jack to the soundboard, something's wrong.
Mhm.
Or it could just be the soundboard starting to go bad, because I believe that predates me down. I don't know what the problem.
As India suggested, the best option, if we're gonna fix anything, is hire someone to evaluate what we have. Understand that there, more than likely, there are issues. And if the best option is to just purchase a couple extra wireless mics, that if something goes bad, we have an option to alleviate that in the near term. I think that's the best option as well.
I also like to remind everybody that sometimes the mics are working just fine. And the people still can't hear us online, and it's because we're not bringing our mouths close enough to the microphone. Yes, it sounds loud in here, but it doesn't sound loud on the other end of the YouTube. So just encourage everybody, get your mouth right up there so they can hear you.
Is the other option is putting that mic next to the speaker? Or adding an extra mic right directly to the speaker?
Yeah,
To
I did
alleviate
look
that?
at a camera also that we could mount that does the 360. And have a microphone connected to it to where it'd be closer to the speaker. And that's about $2,100. $2,100 for that type of system.
That's just to buy the system, not install it.
Yep, that's just like.
Yeah.
Is that the OWL system? Okay, sorry.
It
I think we
is.
should call professionals, but
Well, we have that at work, so. I was just
Oh,
curious.
Yeah, it's a PTZ optics and a Rode mic.
Any idea how much it would cost to have somebody at least come out and look at it? Give you a second opinion.
Probably, I don't know, 5 to 1,000 maybe. $500 to $1,000.
Is that something we have to put out to bid, or is that something we can do within our procurement process?
Let us research it and get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
all right. With that, we'll move, is that okay? Any more discussion on that?
Could we since it was a year ago that I asked, could we get like a timeline, like 2 months or something, or 3 months? Can we get an idea?
Research and get back to us at the next meeting, sure.
We'll get back to you, January.
Okay, thank you.
It is the holidays, ladies and gentlemen, it's the holidays, I'm on the holidays, we're at the holidays. All right, I was trying not to have a meeting next week, but I can't, there's too many things, we've got too much work going on. All right, I do have a motion to go into closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A 3, 6, and 8 respectively. Discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for public purpose for the investment of public funds where discussion in open meeting would adversely affect the town's bargaining position, negotiating strategy, or financial interest in consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by the town. All regarding the following specific legal matter requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel who may participate remotely. Renewal of a lease between the town and Truist Bank for the police department. And pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A8, consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by the town regarding the following specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel. I mean, isn't that all the same thing? I'm sorry. It's who may participate remotely. Proposed amendments to the charter agreement between and among the town of Rappahannock Regional Criminal Justice Training Academy and others and related issues. I say that because it's like legal advice by counsel that is legal, and in order to get legal advice by a legal. Anyway, motion,
I move that we go into closed session
there we go.
as described.
Second.
There, all in favor. All
Aye.
right, we're gonna take a bathroom break and we'll go to closed session. Thank you.
Bye.